When I got started in online business, I had no idea how to sell. I really had to learn that it's important that you create hype and demand for a product before making the product. I had to learn how to launch, how to hype up my audience, and all of those things. And to this day, I really love a good launch. Like if I look at my numbers, out of the nearly 9 million I've done in online sales, a really big chunk of that has come from, really big launches that have then created peaks in my cash flow, but also have created recurring revenue and all of that. And although I still love launches to this day, I'm not going to be the person who's like, oh, launches are dead. Launches aren't dead. But I think there's a moment in your, like your life as an entrepreneur where you start realizing like, this does create a lot of adrenaline. Hello, and welcome to Fail to Win, the show where we love to make mistakes and learn from them so you can turn your passion into profits and live life on your own terms. I'm Amy van der Putten from FastForwardAmy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode with simple strategies every Tuesday. I remember being in a mastermind at one point and everyone was laughing and like half the group was like, oh, I'm so over launches, I never want to launch again. And then I said something and my friend, who's also called Amy, was like, no one likes a good launch like Amy does. And it's true, I really love launches, but there's also come this moment where, I realized in my journey as an entrepreneur, and maybe you recognize this, that I am not willing to go balls to the wall anymore. I used to be willing to do whatever it took to get sales in. I would be up late, I would be going live, I'd do webinars at night, I'd create post-its on the window of my car if I was driving somewhere and I was in the middle of a launch and I was going to celebrate people who purchased, for example. But then there came a moment when when the business started becoming more stable or when I was sick of the cortisol or I was established enough. I don't really know what changed. I think a lot of things at the same time where I realized like, oh, I don't want to be too launch dependent anymore. I will die on the hill that I think if you learn how to do a good launch, you're going to learn how to create better funnels. You're going to establish a lot of authority, higher demand, all of that. And basically anything is a launch. Like having a gender reveal on Instagram is also a launch. Announcing that you're engaged is also a launch. Like everything is a launch when you want to really attract a lot of attention. And at the same time, I think there comes a moment that you, me, and a lot of other business owners have decided like, maybe I also want to make sales in a different way. And I think if we're looking at all of the changes that have happened between 2020 and today, is that a lot of people know how to launch now, they know how to sell, but now they've seen their launches dip and they don't want to have to work 8 to 10 weeks to then work up to a 2-week launch and have it all be dependent on that time, because that is just like really stressful. So if you run your business currently with launches, you probably recognize this pattern. So in this episode, I'm not going to discourage you from launching anymore. If anything, low ticket sales are actually going to help your launches. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at how and why launches might be not the only way to do sales anymore and what you can do instead. Let's dive in. So you know the pattern. You build 6 to 8 weeks, you have a really intense launch week or multiple weeks, there's a really big spike in revenue, then, sales dip, and then it peaks again when you start your close, and you're probably exhausted. So you start building towards the next launch again, and you do the same cycle over and over again. And every time the pressure gets higher because you can't forget to get leads in the meantime. Maybe your costs even went up because you've been investing in a team to actually help you do less. And it's kind of like this vicious cycle where it kind of becomes exhausting. And like I already said in my intro, to this day, I'm a really big fan of launches, and I think you shouldn't just kill them. And if you look at really big brands, they're also still doing the launches. So don't look at this as a black and white thing, but look at this as like a nice add-on that you can start building in parallel. That's actually going to help you grow your entire business. But for a lot of entrepreneurs, the launch-only model is too exhausting and too stressful. And this year, for a lot of people, it's also getting a lot less reliable. And as they say, a business that only makes money when you're there is not a business, it's a job. And honestly, I kind of hate it when I see those quotes because I feel like, and I've said this in the other episodes of this online business reset, but I just feel like there is too much shame out there. I feel like people are getting shamed too much for working hard towards building their dream. And the people who are preaching this have either worked really hard in the past to get to this point, or are secretly still working really hard and kind of like lying about the effort they're putting into their business. So if you see these quotes of like, oh, a business that only makes money when you're there is not a business, it's a job, I would say just like ignore it. And that doesn't mean that I don't agree with it. Partly like I'm really happy that my team does so much for me and that I have really great systems. But honestly, if I'm gone for a couple of months, yeah, of course the business is going to notice it. Like sales will change. I am the visionary of the business. And even on a daily basis, there are certain things like to this day that only I know. And my business has done nearly 8 figures in revenue. So I just don't want anyone to feel discouraged by this, because I actually truly think we are in a time frame right now in this year where you will actually benefit a lot from showing up unapologetically and not being afraid to ask for the sale and not being afraid to show up and sell. And those quotes where it's like, oh, you have a job. It's like, well, okay, but if you can live a life you enjoy and do work you love, like, is that so bad if you're still in building mode and not in exit mode? So yeah, I don't know. I have issues with people saying all that shit. So sip of coffee. Let's look at why the launch only model is breaking down and what you can start building alongside it. So there is one really structural problem that almost no one talks about online. I should really talk about this. Haha, this is why we're here. So the problem with launches, and something that I have fixed by creating an always open membership, for example, is that when you launch, you are asking your audience to buy on your timeline, not theirs. You open the cart, you create the urgency, you add the bonuses and the countdown, and then you close. And the people who weren't ready or who didn't have the symptoms and the problem then and there, who needed 2 more weeks, or who just had a bad month financially, or where life was lifing, they were almost there but not quite, and they didn't buy. And then you're like, oh, I'll try to get them back in the next launch. And then in the meantime, they'll find a different program or a different coach or whatever, or they figure it out themselves or whatever. They just move on and stop listening to whatever you're saying. So let's look at what you can build instead. And we're obviously building on the previous episodes as well. So if you haven't checked out the rest of the Online Business Reset series, definitely go and check it out. So what's happening? 1, buyers are ready on their schedule, not yours. We already talked about this in the previous episodes, but people have a little bit of like a different buying behavior in today's day and age. And it could be that the person who's really ready to buy from you might have been following you for 6 months or even years already. And she just, needed a way to say yes when she was ready, and she needed a way to tell you. So if you only open the doors to your services 4 times a year, which could be a choice and you're allowed to do that. And again, I still launch, but you are leaving money on the table every single day between launches. Like right now, I'm recording this episode and I just had lunch, and I saw during lunch that I had a sale in from someone I know has been following me for a really long time, and she just bought a 27 euro product. She's actually an influencer, which is funny because she bought my 20 templates to build your audience. So I can really see people are struggling with this right now. And so she was able to just buy that when she felt like she needed it, and not when I'm launching that specific product, because it's always available. People are buying that from me every day. And because apparently today she's struggling with her audience, it's really nice that that was then available for her. Because imagine I just launched that during summer when she's offline and she's not seeing my promo then. And then at a certain different point, she's struggling with her audience and I'm talking about a different subject. We might be misaligned the entire time. So what if you could create a product or multiple products even that really fit the pains your audience is feeling on their schedule, not yours? So what I'm building out for my business, and you will see that popping up both in English as well as in Dutch, I'm going to try really hard to make multilingual products, is that I will look at the biggest pain points. So one is overwhelm. People are always overwhelmed. So I'm going to create a product about time management. And then another one is the audience growth posts, all of that. I now have my audience challenge that I'm selling. Another one, I'm still considering this, but I might create a wellness product. I don't know if people are interested in it, but all of these are going to be low ticket products, because I know I'm not going to choose when you're overwhelmed. You probably start every week overwhelmed, and every Sunday you might get the Sunday scaries. So I might really create a product like an anti-overwhelm product, and I might be posting about that every single Sunday with a really fixed format to sell that. I don't need to launch it. I don't need to give a discount. I'm just going to make it a really easy price point between 27 to 97 euros where, the barrier is low, but the value is really good. And it will do two things for me. It's going to generate daily revenue, which is really nice because posts keep on existing. I can run ads on it as well. And the second thing is it will convert a follower into a buyer so that when I am selling higher ticket stuff, they're going to be a lot easier to sell to because, as we said in the previous episode, I'm going to repeat this, a buyer is a completely different person to a follower. And this is the most important thing in this episode for anyone who hasn't heard the rest of this series. Someone who has paid you already, even if it's just 7 euros, 27 euros, they've made a decision. They've crossed the line and they've said, you know what? I trust this person enough to give them my money. And that will change everything into concerning how they will engage with you going forward, because they're way more likely to then say yes to your 997, 2,000, 4,000 euro program compared to someone who's been following you for years and has never engaged or spent anything. Because the second purchase is always easier than the first. The trust is already there and the risk feels a lot smaller because they know they're being taken care of. So I'm going to repeat this just in case you didn't hear the other episode, which this should be your call to action to go and listen. But your low ticket product is not actually where you make your money. It can be if you're doing a lot of volume though, but this is where you make your buyers, and your buyers are the people who are going to say yes to everything else. Okay. And then the next insight, and this is a funny one, but a launch creates a ceiling. It creates a spike that you can then never top again. But daily sales, they create a floor. So when you have a launch, you have a spike, you have a best case that you really want to hit, and then every other day feels like it's really low. When you do daily sales, you create a floor, like a baseline of revenue that shows up whether you're launching or not, whether you're on holiday or not. That's independent from a launch. And that will really change a lot of your decisions, because when you're launching, and my mentor says this always, she's like, it's like you launch and then you close the launch, so you press the brake and then you press the gas again and then press the brake and press the gas again. But when you're actually focused on daily sales of things that are always fixing people's problems and symptoms, you're basically never having to press the brakes because you could still launch on top of that, but there's always a baseline of revenue. And the math is mathing here, because this is what I tell my clients. Imagine you have a 30 euro product, right? And you sell that once a day, every single day. That means that you get nearly 1,000 in sales in just from that one digital product. Now let's imagine you have a 297 product, or you get good at selling this every day. And let's imagine you do 300 euros in sales every single day. This is going to blow your mind. But if you do 300 euros times 30, you actually make 9,000 euros in revenue, which is a full-time paycheck, more than a full-time paycheck, and more than a lot of people are making through their coaching businesses just from selling online. And this is going to compound, because when you get good at creating reels, you get good at converting carousels. I mean, I use Instagram as an example because that's where I do this with some of my products. And then I'm adding the new ones as well once I have a system. A post lives longer than a story. A post lives longer than an open cart, closed cart. I don't want to discourage anyone from launching. It's just, for me, it's been really fun because I actually love sales, and my business loves sales because a business loves cash flow. Like, you have to focus on money. If your business is not making money, you just have a really expensive hobby. So imagine you could do this. You could get 30 a day, 50 a day, 100 a day. Like 100 a day times 30 days is already 3,000 euros a month. And all you need is one digital product to start out with and one way to generate traffic. And so for me, as I got started on this journey, it was just really simple. I would just create a reel or a carousel. The call to action would be to my product, and the product would be on a checkout, and I would just calculate backwards. I was like, okay, so what if I had 10% conversion on that page, which is what I started out with organically. I had 10% conversion on my page from the people who commented. So if I wanted 10 sales a day, I needed 100 comments. So what I did is I went, or at least my content creator did this, we went and looked at what are our 50 most commented on posts and what do they all have in common. Let's reverse engineer this style of posting. And that's when we were kind of blown away by the fact that we don't always We don't need a launch. We don't need a discount. We need to talk about the exact thing our audience feels when they're on the couch on a Sunday and they're doom scrolling, or when they try to finish work on a Friday, but they're feeling like shit, I didn't get enough sales in, or when they look at their numbers and they're like, oh no, I'm not making enough money. Like, if we can talk about the exact thing our audience is feeling and then help them solve it at a fairly cheap price point, they're just going to buy it and they're just going to take action, which is when they have a win, which is when they're actually going to buy more from us. So what I want to help you do with this episode is, I think I've probably convinced you to add in low ticket to your business. I will say, do not forget to focus on your higher ticket, because that's probably where you're actually making money. Don't forget what I said in the last episode. This is like your entry point. It's not your end point. For me, it's the same, but it is nice to create a floor in stable sales. But I'm gonna gift you something, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of a reframe. So if you would stop thinking about your business in launches, right? Like, let's just imagine you do that. You stop thinking, oh, now I need to prime. Now I need to waitlist. Oh, now I'm almost going to sell. Oh my God, now I'm selling. And you go all in for 2 weeks and then you sell and then you stop selling in. What if you would swap that and you would put in sales energy into your business every single day? What if you did something or multiple things to get sales in every single day? Would you sell more? If that is the case, then start taking action on that. And I don't really care if it's low ticket, high ticket. I think we've just been so, it's what I said, I think a month ago, when you're in the bottle, it's really hard to read the label. And even for me, I'm a business coach. I have so much experience. I've coached over 8,000 entrepreneurs. I'm nearing 9 million in online sales. I'm so proud of everything. And I've also left so much money on the table by not installing my daily sales enough into my system, because I was just, in the past, I was going from launch to launch. And I'm really happy I did that. And now I have all of this content and all of these programs that I can be selling on the regular. And I literally have coaching programs people can enroll in on a daily basis. So what I've decided for myself is like, okay, one, we're going to sell more low tickets. In the back end of that low ticket, we're going to sell our coaching programs or our bigger products. And then on the other hand, in podcasts, in testimonials, in weekly, insights from coaching programs, we're just going to pitch our coaching programs. Not with a discount, not with a launch. We're just going to always be selling, because I have this view, and it's that, or this opinion, and is that the only person who's afraid they're selling too much is a person who's not selling nearly enough. Do you think Jeff Bezos thinks, ooh, we're doing too many promos, we're selling too much? No, he doesn't. And so I've seen this. The only people who are concerned with looking too greedy or being too salesy or being annoying are generally the people who are not selling enough to actually make it to the end of the month with their business. And are usually the people who will give up in the first 5 years because, spoiler alert, they did not sell enough. So what are the 3 to 5 things you could do every single day that would get you sales? Would it be interacting with people? Would it be sending out a broadcast? I've listed up 50 actions anyone can start taking every single day. And every day you could tick off like 3 to 5 to focus on sales. And if you're a business owner and you currently want to make more money or it's starting to feel tight, I really urge you to take either the first day of the week or the first morning of the week or the first 1 to 2 hours of your day to focus on sales. Because without sales, you don't have cash. Without cash, you don't actually have a business. You just have a really expensive hobby. So, we need to, I'm going to give you that list. Hold up. I'm going to add it to the description of this episode. Or if you want to download it from my Instagram, go to FastForwardAmy and message me the word check 50. So check like checklist, check 50, 50, all one word. And it's going to be a list of 50 actions you can start taking right away. So people will start saying yes to whatever it is you're offering. So I'm going to close this series with an opinion which you're allowed to disagree with. I believe that the entrepreneurs who will win in the next couple of years are the ones who will actually continue to show up and use their authentic voice. I believe that these are the entrepreneurs who are going to continue to show up and actually not be afraid to sell. Because I think the people who win are the people who never go into a victim mindset and who don't wish it were easier. I kind of want to dive deeper into that, but this is something I've struggled with. Anytime I struggle with something, be it my health or my business, it's because I am secretly desiring or wishing for it to be easier. And so a great example of that is I want to be really fit, but being fit and being sporty, it just doesn't come naturally to me. So it's something I really have to work towards. Like just right now after lunch, I went for a walk, and these are really habits I've had to teach myself, but they've not come naturally. And so in the past, I had gained a lot of weight, stress weight, like a bunch of stuff, and I wasn't feeling too great in my body. And I noticed that there was something really weird happening in my brain, and it was that I kept thinking, oh, but I know what to do, so why isn't it easier? And I think with online marketing and online sales, a lot of us have been misinformed and also lied to, if I'm going to be really honest, about what it takes to build a successful business. When I'm sitting in a room with really successful entrepreneurs, no one says, oh, it was really easy. No one. Now, if I'm being completely honest, when I'm in LA with other business owners, especially US based, I'm not always inspired by the fact that they hustle, and just like don't have any time off. I think me coming from Europe, I have a little bit of a different view on freedom, family, and like I personally don't want to just burn myself into the ground trying to build my business, but I do want to work hard and I don't shy away from it. I just want to take care of my health at the same time. And so this is not something I always find in other groups of entrepreneurs, but okay, I created in my own masterminds. But what I do see is that none of them are saying, oh, it was really easy. I talked to Lisa Billieux, who built Quest nutrition bars with her husband. I think it took them 5 years to create $1 billion business. They worked really hard on it. And so what happened to me in the past, when I'm struggling with my health, it's usually because I'm not doing the things I need to be doing. And I'm secretly just, being a little bit of a victim and wishing for it to be easier. And whenever I notice that's happening, I reframe and I'm like, okay, but like, what if I just accepted that I have to work for it? What if I accepted that I have to drink more water? What if I accepted that, after lunch, I do have to go outside for 20 minutes? What if I accepted that rain or shine, I get the 4 workouts in? And there's something really funny that happens the moment I accept it and I start taking those actions. I feel better. I feel more proud. I have more energy. And then I start feeling fitter or more fit. It's because I'm actually taking those actions. And so the same thing happens in your business. You can resist the effort it takes to build your business. You can be like, oh, why is it not easier? But honestly, it being easier is a lie we've been told. It gets to be really simple, but not easy. And this is where the shop example is so good, because if you had a little shop in a little town and you sold iron in that shop and like bolts and hardware, right? Imagine you had that little shop. Would you expect that shop to run without putting out a promo of the week, without turning on the lights of your shop, without someone actually being in the shop? No, you'd be like, oh, if I had a little shop inside of the town, I'd have to open the shop or have someone open the shop. I'd have to turn on the lights. And, when it's a renovation time of the year, I don't know when that is, I would have to put out, the tools outside with like this little chalkboard with a weekly promo. Like you would make an effort. But it's because we are in the online business world and we have been lied to by a lot of the online business gurus that we think like, oh, but shouldn't it be easier? But wishing for it to be easier is actually just wasted energy that you could be using instead on getting better. And that's why I want to gift you that list. So one small action, as we spoke about in all of the other episodes, if you look at your business right now and you look at your profile or whatever, ask yourself, what is the thing people can buy? And if you don't find anything under 150 euros, this could be really interesting for you to add a product like that. What I also said in the last episode is do make sure that you can carry this volume to do sales, because if you're starting out as a beginner, I usually tell my clients like, okay, create a first low ticket product to get your confidence up, but then make sure you have a core offer that you're actually selling, where people, get led to in the background. Okay, so let's recap the series, right? This is a wrap on 5 episodes of the Online Business Reset. I'm really curious to hear if you liked the series aspect and if I should do more of this and what really landed. I think a couple of things that I'm taking away from this, from just like sitting down, doing the research, recording these episodes, is that, there's always going to be trends, there's always going to be changes, but everything is cyclical. Low ticket might be hyped up now. In 3 years, there will be high ticket. Like in a year, we'll be doing offline events. And, 1 year, everyone needs to do professional photo shoots. The other year, it's like, oh no, too pretty doesn't work. Make amateur ugly photos. Like everything is cyclical. But there are a couple of things that are always going to work. Being authentically yourself is always going to work. Making money because you're selling enough is always going to work. So just don't get discouraged if things have been a little bit harder lately. Don't forget to bring the social and the enthusiasm into your social media, because not everything can be systemized, and it shouldn't either. And not everything should be strategic. So if any of this landed for you, please do hit follow and leave me a review. I would really appreciate that. And maybe forward it to someone who's been struggling and who needs it. 50% of entrepreneurs quit in the first 5 years, mainly due to cash flow and sales issues and a lot of mental issues as well. So if there's anyone I can help with these episodes and, just like motivate a little bit to not give up and to make it easier, I would love that. And other than that, I will see you next week, Tuesday, for a new episode. And let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to create episodes or a series on, okay? Bye!